Well, Josh, you mentioned Iran and the threat that it poses to Israel, but Iran in its approach is not changing. They remain steadfast. The regime change that Donald Trump and Netanyahu mentioned, that so far has not happened. Of course, there has been a change in the personnel, in the leadership, but the overall regime change has not happened. So at what point do you think Israel and US might need to rethink their strategy when it comes to this conflict in West Asia? Josh?
So again, it's only been 10 days or so. I say we have to let it ride out. We have to give it time. And at the end of the day, the ultimate goal, as you said, is regime change. So you have the Khamenei son now taking over leadership, but who knows how many days he's going to last? Who knows if he's going to last throughout the day, even today? Everyone knows that he has the same policies. I read a report indicating maybe he's even more extreme than his father, than his father there in Iran. So I think it's only a matter of time. It will take some time. People have to be patient, realize that it doesn't happen overnight. But I think at the end of the day, the U.S. and Israel are both determined to see regime change in Iran. And I think this is going to continue until that happens. The president and also the prime minister of the state of Israel, Netanyahu, many times already talking directly to the Iranian people, saying that they have to seize the opportunity. It's a generational, once in a generation opportunity in order to try to take over there, let the people decide who their future leaders are going to be. But the regime has to go. That's at the end of the day, that's what has to happen.
All right, Josh. I also have to ask you about the Gulf countries and their involvement in this conflict. Now, so far there has been no outright support. I would say they have not played an active role so far in this conflict. Why do you think the Gulf countries are so wary of actively joining this conflict?
Well, we've seen, in recent months and even years, the sensitivities here. Saudi Arabia, and all the Gulf countries, really, the UAE, Bahrain, and whatnot, they are Iran's direct neighbors. So they have to walk a fine line in terms of, what they say publicly and actually what they think. Of course, the Saudis, there's no love lost between the Saudis and Iran. And now, for the first time, I saw in the last several days, the Saudis openly criticizing Iran for striking at Saudi Arabia, along with Bahrain, the UAE, and Oman, and some of the other countries. But at the end of the day, they recognize, these countries understand that Iran is threatening them as much as Iran is threatening Israel or the United States. So ultimately, they know what has to happen. And I believe wholeheartedly, 100%, that they will be completely satisfied if the mullahs, if the regime in Iran is overthrown. It keeps them safe, and they recognize this, but they have to play this game going back and forth because of the reality of being basically in Iran's orbit there, bordering the country.
All right, Josh, I also have to ask you, is there any room for diplomacy that is possible right now? And if so, who will be the possible mediators? Because there might be, if the war prolongs, there might be a need to rethink, the US and Israel might need to rethink their strategy. So is there any room for diplomacy right now?
I don't think so. I mean, we've been down this path before. The president was already in negotiations with Iran. He saw it was a dead end. You can't negotiate with those who want to wipe you off the face of the earth, and the president understands that. So I don't see any diplomacy anytime soon. A lot with this regime in Iran. I really believe wholeheartedly that this time Israel is going full force, the U.S. is going full force until that regime collapses. So I don't see any point in talking. Back in 2015, the U.S. signed a terrible nuclear agreement with Iran, and that basically fast-tracked Iran per the agreement, to go towards nuclear weapons. What the president said, and Prime Minister as well, that Iran could have been maybe 2 weeks away from having the capabilities towards a nuclear weapon. So there is no diplomacy right now. I cannot see that happening in the near future. I cannot see that happening when you have the head of the octopus there, Iran, sponsoring Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, all the terrorist organizations which are threatening world security. I don't see that happening here in the near future.
All right, Josh, final question for you. At this point, what do you feel like is the likely outcome, and how long do you think this war will last? Because you mentioned that the US and Israel are steadfast and they want a regime change, but Iran also have not changed their approach, and they have made it clear that they will continue to retaliate. So in your perspective, seeing how all sides are playing out, how long do you think, and what is the possible outcome when you think the war or the conflict will end in West Asia? Josh?
So again, I don't think you can put a time frame on it. I think as the president and both the prime minister, both of them have said it's going to take as long as needed in order for Iran to be a stabilizing force in the world, a secure force, and it cannot threaten the world community. Until that happens, I don't see this ending right now. You know, just several minutes ago, there was another missile strike by Iran in northern Israel. I mean, it's basically around the clock, and now you have Hezbollah who are involved as well. The goal is once Iran falls, hopefully all the other dominoes will fall as well, including Hezbollah and the other terror organizations which they count on and have counted on for many, many years and have the blood of thousands and thousands of people around the world on their hands. So I cannot see a reality in which this regime is left in power. They have to go once and for all for the sake of humanity. That's really what this is about, as long as it takes. If it's a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, as long as it takes, they cannot be in power as we go forward.
Well, thank you very much for those insights, Josh. Josh, an Israeli journalist from Jerusalem, saying that as of now there is no room for diplomacy, and the US and Israel continue to remain steadfast in their approach on complete regime change in Iran, which for the viewers, it is important to note that so far it has not happened. But thank you very much for those insights, Josh. We move on.
Thank you.